Hello, my name is Michelle Dresbode, and today we're going to be talking about somebody named Nichol Kessinger. To understand who Nichol Kessinger is, we have to understand someone else named Chris Watts. Now, Chris Watts was what you call your normal, handsome, suburban guy, married to a beautiful woman named JANINE, and had two lovely kids, Cece and Bella. Now, on the surface, it looked wonderful. They had a beautiful house, a beautiful family. The thing that if you were a neighbor, you'd go, oh, look what a lovely life they have. But nothing is quite what it looks like on the surface. Chris Watts was having an affair with a woman named Nichol Kessinger. Now, he had a couple choices. He could have continued with his affair. He could have broken up with his affair. He could have divorced his wife. But he took a third choice, one that was quite evil. He decided to get rid of his wife and children. He smothered his wife and took his children and stuffed them in an oil bin and buried his wife. Now, the first time I ever heard about this was on a Netflix show, and the Netflix show was called American Murder. Now, at that time, I watched the show and I was like, oh, this horrible Chris Watts. But there was also the woman he was involved with, Nichol Kessinger. The Netflix show didn't show a lot about Nichol Kessinger. It had her being interviewed. And at that time, I said, wow, something is wrong here. She seemed very calm, cool, collected. Now, all I could think was, if I had dated a guy, he wound up killing his wife and kids, I'd be hysterical. And in fact, I once had a trainer at the gym, and I found out he robbed a bank. I was hysterical. I didn't even know the guy outside of the gym, but it made me nervous, and I thought about it for months. And I was like, how could this nice guy rob a bank? Well, let alone how could the guy I'm having an affair with, which I'm not having an affair, but let's just say the guy murder his wife and kill his kids. Now, as I watched that show, I thought about this Nichol Kessinger, and I said, I wish I knew somebody who could explain more about this Nichol Kessinger. Wish I could talk to somebody. Something didn't seem right. Now, that was before I hooked up with the Profiler Task Force. And luckily for me, I ended up being in this group, being asked to be in a group with Susan Ibitz, LENA Cisco, and Janine Driver. Now, these are some of the top profilers in the United States, and frankly, probably in the world. And I'm lucky enough to have them here tonight with me to talk a little bit about Nichol Kessinger. So, my fellow profilers, why don't you introduce yourself?
All right, I'm Janine Driver. I'm your body language expert. I just said I'm from Boston originally. I live in the Washington, D.C. area. I'm the mother of 3 sons. I'm not invited to a lot of dinner parties because my favorite thing to do is detect deception, and no one wants a human lie detector at their house. I'm the author of You Say More Than You Think and You Can't Lie to Me. My background, 17 years in law enforcement. Susan Ibitz.
How you doing, everyone? My name is Susan Ibitz. I'm a human behavior hacker. Some people hack computers. I hack humans, and my specialty is face reading profiling, meaning combining all the channels of behavior, and I can read your face and determine and profile you. And for only one picture, I can do a 50-page report. And I love that Janine and I, we can do more and more work together. We start chin up. We should do a promo with a chin up. Like, yeah, Janine, you come up with that. Lena, tell us about you.
So, no, I am a former Navy intel officer and Marine Corps certified interrogator. Shortly after 9/11, I interrogated members of Al-Qaeda and Taliban, and that's kind of where I launched my entire career, was from there. I worked on a TV show for 3 years called Couples Court with a couple. I detected deception there. I have been training government agencies, private sector, military, and law enforcement for decades in interrogation, interviewing, detecting deception, body language, and elicitation. I also published a book called You're Lying. Back to you, Michelle.
My name is Michelle Dresbode. I'm the author of the book Sex, Lies, and Handwriting, and I am a handwriting expert. And from handwriting, I can tell who might have written an anonymous letter, who forged something, how dangerous a writer is. And I can tell pretty much everything about a person's personality, everything. So why don't we get on and learn about Nichol Kessinger? Why don't we have Janine? Would you care to tell us? Janine is fabulous. So Janine, what do you think? Tell us what you thought about Nichol Kessinger.
I would love for all of you to stay on camera, if you don't mind, to play with me as we go into, because I'm going to have you do an experiment and I want you to tell me some information. I always say you can't unsee it, unhear it, or unexperience it. So if you wouldn't mind, ladies, playing with me, and you at home, as I asked the ladies to do this, the profilers, if you'll do it too, and start to pay attention to your own body. So you stay on camera with me?
Yep.
Sure.
All right, let's dive
You
in.
got us.
Let's dive in. All right, there's a lot to unpack with Nichol, and we're going to just not have a lot of time. So I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to talk about two elements today. Number one, I want to talk about this blocking behavior when we block ourselves. And you see Nichol doing this quite a bit. She has a very cavalier conversation. I'm not playing this video with sound, but very cavalier. She's just like hanging out, like she's hanging with friends. And I agree, Michelle, like you think that there would be some affect about, you know, the guy you dated murdered his wife and two little kids and squished their little bodies into a pipe, like had to break their shoulder bone. I mean, and there's just like, she's acting like, you know, someone stole her credit card. You know, I think she might even be more upset about that. So in particular, I'm not going to talk about blocking other than usually blocking happens when there's an increase in stress and anxiety, and I'm creating distance from what's going on, but there's nothing else here. When it comes to reading body language, we're looking for clusters. So yes, there's some blocking here, but there's not a lot of drama, not a lot of, you know, overly overt signs of deception in this particular interview. This is the one I want to talk about, this pose right here, though, as she's blocking. So I want the ladies, the profilers, and you at home. So I want you to put your hand on your chest, on your throat like this, like we're seeing Nichol do in this picture, okay? And I want you to pay attention to how it feels, okay? Just take a second, okay? All right, now we're going to do the same exact motion, okay? And I want you to do it with the back of your hand, kind of like this. Just kind of lean on it, okay? With the back side of your hand. You at home do the same thing, and I want you to feel what this feels like for a second. Okay? Turn it around, do it this one again. Which one is more sensitive? Which one do you have more tactile for?
Number one.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, great. So the palm of our hand has more receptors than the back of our hand. So the palm of our hand has more receptors, and even more than our palm of our hand, or our fingertips have more receptors, even more so than the palm. And I'm telling you this because it creates a quicker sensation. And so often when people are stressed and anxious, it's a comforting gesture because they're feeling it in two places, not just on their throat or right here on their throat, on their neck, but they're also feeling it on their hand. So they get, you know, two for the price of one here for comforting themselves versus just sitting something like this. This might be when you're bored in a meeting, right? Feel the difference between this and this. This is almost so intimate, right? It's like, it's okay, I'll get through this. And so when you pay attention to this, what's happening is with neck touching, it increases with when we're under stress. And it's this negative limbic arousal. Literally, our brain needs hand to body touching throughout the day. And it increases when we're not only stressed, but when we feel threatened. The other thing I want to point out briefly, and we'll talk more about in Patreon tonight, is I'm just going to show you, ladies, profilers, what do you notice about Nichol's body language as I just kind of glide around? What's kind of a pattern that you're seeing? When it comes to movement pattern analysis, I'm a profiler on movement pattern analysis. We all have a behavioral fingerprint that we do certain moves more than other moves. There's 12 movements all human beings make. So if you were a director of a movie and you were going to have a character, an actress play Nichol, what would you have her do in her seat? What are you seeing her do a lot?
Back and forth, up and back, up and
Great.
back.
So you're seeing this back and forth, right? So this is called right here, right? Everybody lean forward. This is I'm leaning into the future to bring the future to now. Okay. This is advancing and retreating. So everybody right now. So Susan, Michelle, Lena, you at home, advance, now retreat. Advance and retreat. We see all kinds of people do this, and it's connected here, which is anticipating. The anticipating wolf sets goals, measure progress, updates plans. These tend to be our people who are good at trend spotting. These are the people that run scenarios, A, B, C, D, which Nichol did, but she didn't do it with regard to having an affair or with regard to you're involved with this like guy that murdered his wife and 2 young daughters. But you know what she says in this interview? Should I change my name? Should I move? How am I going to get a job? I just got fired. Is anyone going to hire me? Her questions are so out of left field. So she's anticipating, but it doesn't mean she's good at it. So just because we're motivated in one of these 6 areas of decision making, she happens to be the anticipating wolf, it does not mean she's good at it. Doesn't mean this, she may like it. You know, think about the wolf. What happens with the wolf, right? The wolf sees you, right? And you're injured, Susan. It doesn't attack right away. It follows you until you're separated from the pack. It's strategic, right? It's motivated to make smarter decisions, anticipate the future, anticipate the consequences. It doesn't mean you're always good at it. So look at a couple celebrities. So I want you to show you, as I wind down my segment, just a couple celebrities doing this. These are our trend spotters usually. Ready? Watch just a couple and we'll go deeper tonight in Patreon. Here's Beyonce and Beyonce's mom. They both do this move a lot. Here we go.
Sometimes like, Mom, you have, like, I can't focus. Did you design all the clothes?
So I make this little sound, ding, ding, so you can see this advancing again, and then she does a retreat. This is connected with people who think about the future. They are trend spotters. And I have a whole bunch of celebrities. Richard Branson is in here, and we'll go over these tonight. Harry, Prince Harry, and then we see Frank Sinatra doing this as well. But, you know, the list goes on and on and on. So if we have time, we'll go over this tonight. And just know, tonight we'll also talk in Patreon about this funny episode on Friends where they're like, wait a minute, what happens if I never get married? I need a backup. Phoebe goes, oh, I already have a backup. What, you have a backup? Yeah, Joey, what do you mean? I don't have a backup. It's a funny episode. It's thinking about the future. So when it comes to Nichol, listen, she's pacifying, which is an indicator of stress and anxiety. She feels under attack, but attack for the right reasons or the wrong reasons? I don't know. It's up to you, profilers. What do you guys think? It might be just simply thinking about, where am I going to get a job? How can I make money? Who's going to date me now? Very self-centered. All right, back to you, Michelle, and any questions the ladies have.
Well, thank you, Janine. You know, talk about that. One of the things she did do, just a week or I think a little bit after all this happened, she looked up Amber Fry and wanted to know how much money did Amber Fry, who was the mistress of Scott Peterson, make from a book.
See, anticipating, thinking about it just happens to be wrapped up in her ego, right?
Yes, yes. So that was fascinating. Lena, Susan, any questions for Janine?
So Janine, I do this. And I think you've called me out on it years ago too. You're like, and I'm like, I know I do it. I feel myself. I'm like, I need to stop.
Yeah, well, you won't be able to stop. You know, my roots are coming in. You can stop for 6 weeks and you'll go back to your authentic self. If you're telling people, stop worrying about the future, Lena, stop worrying so much. Don't run plan A, B, C, D, E, F. What if these tend to be the gloom and doom people, right? They go like balls to the wall, like, this is a problem. If we don't solve this, the show's never going to work, right? So they run those scenarios. The best way to fix it is you can't fix it, is you are who you are. You create a strategy around your weaknesses. And that's something we'll have to talk about in another time. But it's a strength that you have. And it's also a corresponding weakness that you have.
Yeah.
Susan?
Wait to see my reading. I get to the same. She value quality, status, and she get feisty when she get cornered. So that's the reason she deviate. So we get on the back, but I love the movement. And when you put it really fast, I'm like, what is going on? Yeah, I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know,
Thank you, Janine.
I think a lot of people are out there, you know, they want to put the onus on her a lot, Nichol, and I'm interested to hear what you have to say. You got the profiles. And I want to let you know, just because someone separates, you know, there's a lot of body language people out there say when someone leans back, it's because they're feeling uncomfortable and they don't like the question. Maybe that's one answer, or maybe it's part of their behavioral fingerprint and they just naturally lean back and forward like Lena does. So for her, it's part of her baseline. It is part of her behavioral fingerprint. You cannot use this as a tell that she's uncomfortable at that particular question. It's just part of her DNA, her movement DNA.
So what do you
Thank you.
recommend with people when they jump so fast? A baseline?
Yeah, so yeah, be careful on, I think a little knowledge makes a monster sometimes. Be careful. Our show is here for educational purposes and for entertainment purposes. Be careful of assuming that you're now a profiler because you've learned a tip or two from us. It's a lot more deeper and complicated. And always go back to what Lena says, asking great questions. And that's it for my segment. Over to you, Michelle.
Thank you, Janine. Thank you so much. Well, I think we're going to hear now from our statement analysis and interrogator expert, Lena. But before we do, there's a subscription button down there. Please, please, please press it. We would really appreciate it. And now for the great Lena Cisco, what did you find about Nichol Kessinger? I'm so excited to hear this.
Actually, so I decided to do something a little different, and I'm going to teach everyone, all of you guys, my profilers, and all of you about elicitation and how Nichol elicits from Chris Watts. Oh, I can't wait to get into it.
Ooh, yay.
All right, so I'm going to show you some experts of email exchanges. You probably have seen it if you've done a deep dive search on this case, but I'm going to pick them apart for you, and I'm going to explain what elicitation is. All right, everyone. So let's get into some statement analysis, but also elicitation that I found out in their statements and their emails with Nichol Kessinger and Chris Watts. So first, let's have a look. This was an email that came from Nichol, and I'll read them along as we go through it. It says, gentlemen, comma, I spoke with my gas monitor vending regarding blah, 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 blah. This email I'm not going to concentrate on so much, but I want to concentrate on one thing, and that is her salutation, how she ends the email. She says, best regards, Nichol Kessinger, right? So now let's look at another email, and you can see the date timestamp on this email. It's to Chris, and it's from Nichol again. She says, Chris, thank you for being honest with me this morning. Truthfulness is so underrated in our culture. Right. And then she signs off, saludos cordiales. And please forgive me for my accent. Why on earth? Because she wrote best regards in the former email, but now it's something to attract attention and make me more desirable and make me more interesting. And she changes it for her email just to Chris. But here's the other thing, and this is what I'm going to focus on tonight. She makes a great elicitation statement. I train elicitation today. I've been training it for decades. I train law enforcement, I train military, and I train government agency personnel. It is a way to get information without having to ask for it. And how do you do that? Is you just make a provocative statement. A provocative statement provokes a response. It keeps a conversation going. You can actually obtain a ton of information without ever having to ask for it. And when you don't ask people questions, they tend to drop their guard because you're not putting them you're making them feel at ease, right? You're not putting them on guard. Because sometimes when we ask people questions, it automatically puts up this defensive posture and says, oh, wait a minute, why are you asking me that? But if we don't ask a question and we make a narrative response, a provocative statement, and it keeps pushing that conversation, you will find that people will give you so much information because they're just not aware of it. Right. I train a lot of salespeople in this too. So if you're in sales and you want to learn this special technique, give me a call. But anyway, let's get back to this email because Nichol, I guarantee she's not trained in elicitation, but she knows how to use it. This statement, thank you for being honest with me this morning. Truthfulness is so underrated in our culture. She stated that purposely to get Chris to respond. Who wouldn't respond to that? Right? It's a great provocative statement. So let's go on to see what else happens in this email chain. Chris writes her, Nikki, I'm a straightforward guy, right? Because think of that elicitation statement she just did. Truthfulness is so underrated. Hey, I'm a straightforward guy. So that means you're going to like me, Nikki, because I'm just what you're looking for. Lying just complicates things. Interesting, because apparently if having this affair with her is lying, and if lying just complicates things, did he murder because lying was too hard? Who knows? I think you're absolutely stunning. And from what I've learned about you so far, you seem like an amazing person. I hope to continue to get to know you better since we have a lot in common. Chris has already established himself with Nichol because of that pronoun we. They are already committed, they are grouped, they're together. All right. So he is already thinking of her in this way that they are together, they're connected. So Nichol writes Chris back. Chris, agreed. It's always nice to find people you can relate to. I enjoy talking with you as well. I feel understood. I am looking for someone to build a beautiful life with. Seems so simple, but is so unrealistic at some times. So number one, when I go back to that people, it's always nice to find people you can relate to. Now she's being distancing, right? She's not saying him. She's just leaving it open and out there. Again, elicitation. How is Chris going to respond to this? I am looking for someone to build a beautiful life with. Not you, Chris. Could be you, but just someone right now. And Chris, I want you to know I'm looking. And if you're the guy, hey, that's great. So seems so simple, but it's so unrealistic. She puts this in parentheses. Why? Because another great elicitation statement is provocative, and it's a way to get Chris to keep the conversation going and respond. It is baiting Chris into keeping this conversation with her. Build something similar to what you have done with your wife and those cute little girls, right? Now she's connecting with him and basically telling Chris, I want what you have. I do believe in karma. So out of respect for myself, you and your family, I think it's best if we keep that friendship at work. Okay. So that friendship, it's odd that she uses that because the next sentence, by the way, I keep the conversations we have between us. Okay. So at this point, that friendship, but I'm keeping conversations between us. That tells me, hey, listen, we can keep the friendship, right, at work, but maybe we can keep our relationship outside of work. And as we go on to my last email here, Nikki, yes, a beautiful life is something that is hard to find in this world since people always seem to have an agenda for everything. A beautiful life. It just tells me he doesn't consider his life beautiful. Okay. That is hard to find in this world since people always seem to have an agenda. Why would he say that if he himself is not experiencing a person who has an agenda with him? And at the point that he killed Shanann, she was pregnant with another child. And there's texts from her saying to her girlfriend, I don't think Chris wants this baby. Could that be the possible agenda that he's talking about? And also people. Who's people? Is it your wife, Chris? Who is people? Someone. He is talking about someone in his life that has an agenda against him. I do believe in karma. So I agree with that as well. Any conversations we have will stay between us. Okay, at this point, they have both established their affair. They have established their relationship. Friendship at work, but our affair will happen outside of work and just between us. So it is established and both are contributing to this affair. No need to worry there. My work number is blah, blah, blah. If you need to get a hold of me in the field, sometimes email can be tricky with my spotty service, etc. I have an early morning meeting and then I'm doing lotto for a construction crew on various sites all day. So if I don't see you tomorrow, I hope you have an amazing day. Exclamation points 3 in a row. When people do multiple exclamation points, it just puts an emphasis on something. But through this is what I see. Okay. So Nichol has used elicitation to bait Chris into her. She has specifically used words that she knows Chris will anchor to and like. Chris took the bait and Chris is now interested in her, and so much so putting his life, distancing himself from his marriage and his wife. And now they have completely established an affair that will happen outside of work. So do I believe that Nichol had a bit of an ego? Yes, she did bait Chris in. Do I believe that these two fully intended to be together? Of course, 100%. They are both willing and nothing is going to stop them.
Well, thank you, Lena. That was really fascinating. I wonder, I mean, not in a bad way and not with an affair, if these kind of words, we can learn them if we want to kind of, I don't want to say seduce somebody.
Why not?
You can.
Why not? I mean, And let's say you don't use those words in a bad way. And what it's doing, at least to me, is, you sort of say, oh, I wouldn't mind it would be so nice to know somebody if they wanted to love me. And then you're giving them the bait. So if they go, oh yeah, I have a friend, or too bad I'm married, you're setting yourself up so maybe you don't get hurt right away, and you're setting the bait. And like you say, they can take it or leave it. But maybe somebody in a good way could use some of this information.
So the way that she's writing is she's purposely baiting him in. But if it was to come out as evidence, like in a case, she can get away with saying, I never told him to do that. I never said I wanted a life with him, and I never said I wanted an affair with him. But clearly, when you read between the lines, it is perfect elicitation technique to bait him into an affair.
Yeah. No. Thank you. That was very fascinating. Susan, do you have any questions for Lena?
Yeah, since I always repeat the same, Lena was my teacher first, and I always treasure that in my heart. One thing that you always teach us is do not do a compound question. It's a connection between elicitation and compound question, and this is a compound question per se. Like when you says, how much are going to lose and how much are going to win? And like, well, it's only 10%. I eliciting you using your own dictionary because you decide like, oh, I'm going to win 10%. And the other person come up and like, I never said you're going to win 10%. So it's a way that we as civilian people who go through life can avoid to be elicited. So this is the other side of elicitation, how we can avoid replying with the right question to make sure where we're getting into.
That is brilliant, Susan. So for all of you out there, if you're going to start a new relationship with someone or buying a house or buying a car, right? And somebody is making a statement to you and you feel like, oh, I feel like I'm getting trapped into buying something or getting trapped into doing something that I don't want to do or saying something I don't want to say. All you have to do is follow up with a question. Ask a good interrogative question. An interrogative question starts with who, what, when, where, why, and how. It does two things. Number one, it stops that person from making you do something you don't want to do. And it also allows you to take control of the conversation because now you've asked the question and they have to answer it and you can get off topic. So yes, if you feel that somebody's trying to bait you into something, and you get that feeling like, I don't know where this conversation is going. It feels a little weird. Turn it, flip the conversation, ask a good question, and take control.
Thank you very much. I was waiting for asking that question in so many episodes. Thank you. I'm a happy person today.
Thank you. I have one more thing to say about that is that and talk about people have affairs. I years ago, and somebody who wanted to date me and he would go after me and after me. And I don't know why this wasn't into him. And one day I got a phone call and it was from a woman. And she goes, I'm so-and-so's wife. I don't appreciate you leaving whatever message to my husband. And I yelled at her and I said, look, I didn't know your husband was married. Frankly, I wasn't interested in him. Thank goodness for me. I said, I think the person you should be yelling at is not me. I think you better take it to your husband. Yes. So without him complying, even if she tried to, quote, bring him in, there would be no affair.
Bingo.
So it's not, when people blame, oh, that woman took him away from me. I'm like, nah, without his cooperation,
yes,
like you said, they can't go further.
So I like to say, Michelle, it takes two to tango.
It takes two to tango, sometimes three.
You know what? We should do a show about all the simple scam happen from where the people who knock your door to sell you something, insurance to dating, because I think the most people is going to look for the serial killers or the big like Ebron scam. But we have been talking that on our happy hour, how we can be a victim from a scam from like, I'm selling cookies when actually you're not a Boy Scout or whatever it's called. I'm not into that, but those are a scam too. When somebody use your trust and misuse your trust, I think that is a concept of a scam. What do you guys think?
It definitely is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. And I hope that people who are watching this show, yes, we sometimes talk about extreme examples. And yes, these are extremes, but you can learn from those extremes just little pieces. What is a con artist? What does somebody who's trying to seduce somebody, what does that mean? And it doesn't mean you're dealing with a murderer or a serial killer. There are everyday examples of what we're trying to say. So thank you for that question, Susan. And as long as we're saying Susan, why don't you tell us a little bit about your findings on this case?
This is a special for you, Michelle, because you asked me for. And again, when we did Chris Watt on the happy hour, a lot of people asked about Nichol. It's Nichol, no? Yeah, horrible name.
Nicole
You know me
Kessinger.
already. I'm wrong names. So when we did the reading, I found some comparison and people were like, holy cow. And you, Michelle, says, you know what, Susan, why don't you take that comparison that we did on the happy hour and we put it in our show? So Michelle, this is special for you. You're going to freak out how these two could be brothers and sisters separated at birth. We have been talking about Chris Watts, and if you don't remember the evaluation and the reading we did on him, not to take too much about him today, you can go back and watch the show. That is one of the marvelous things about this show, that you can go back and watch it as many times, pause, review, and learn and take notes. We talk about, first of all, about Chris Watts' ear, that he doesn't have any outer ear counter. That meaning, you see where the arrow is located, you see that it's empty. It's a person who needs to deal with boredom. If you put this on an artist, it's going to be a person who's going to be looking for new ways to express themselves. But what happened when you put that feature with other features he have, and by the way, she have too. Now, what I did the same way we did that day is I put a square on both mouths and I duplicate. Initially, I start with her. I said, okay, since she is the center of the show, I made a square on her mouth, duplicated, didn't modify absolutely anything, and put it on top of his mouth. You see the size? Both have big mouths. Extrovert, they're expressive, one personality, they're alluring, they're eliciting others. Sounds familiar, Lena? Sounds familiar, Michelle? When you have a big mouth, you're warm and personable, you can elicitate everyone to anything. And I think these two were playing the game who catch the mouse, and nobody realized they both were cats and they were their mouth. So they were catching each other because they had their charming. Now, did you see the upper lip? Did you see the stretched upper lip? False sincerity hides their true feelings. This was a game. You see, he was hiding it by the beard, and she was hiding it not to have it. But you can see the stretched upper lip in both. And we're gonna see another picture when we both are smiling, stretched upper lip, no sincerity. Both have big front tooth. They were stubborn, and when they make their mind, they're not let it go. Again, elicitation. She see him as a victim that I want to lure, and he was obsessed with her, and he want to lure her. So both were playing again the game. It's funny and it's seductive when you both are single. You're not planning to kill your wife and your two kids, 2.5, one was on the way, but again, if you put it together on the wrong way, you have a disaster waiting to happen. The third one, you see the chin, the big chin, the straight chin. There were bulldogs. Again, big front tooth. What I wanted, and I'm gonna get it. Now, when you have a straight chin, it's my way or the highway. Now, when we have big chins too, it's not only big, it's straight. They're earth grounded, assertive, super competitive, and physical tough. Do you remember she did a video when she was with skateboard on the snow, and they did a lot of sport activities together? That was the passion. They were super competitive and found competition between them part of the fascination. So that happened when you have big square chin and flat. Don't get me wrong, my business partner have those things. She's a bulldog. She want a client. She wants something. I get out of the way because she's gonna bleed me to death and she should get it. And I love her for that. That's what make our business grow. But coming with other assets who make her compassionate and empath to be on the right way. So that competitive, remember they do a lot of sport together. They like the physical activity. That would happen. That's what we can read. And you see how many things they have the same. Now for the ones who love the asymmetry, guys, it's about you. So I'm going to get it. I don't think to say too much about it. It's not about Chris, but since we're talking about them as a couple. Now with Nichol, it was really difficult to find a picture where it's completely fronted. So since she's looking one eye to another place and another, right, I blocked the eye not to get confused because she looked like she had crossed eyes. So I don't want it to concentrate on that, but I wanted to concentrate on her left side, a business side, really thin nose, self-made. Nothing was given to her. You can see the small nostrils. Small nostrils and the part of your face happen when you have been given as a child either support, emotionally nurtured and love, or when you haven't been given money, or you was given a scarcity. And I see Lena checking your eyes, your nostril. We can talk about it. On her business side, when she was growing, I'm sure she had a lot of scarcity. And we're going to understand why I'm talking scarcity, because both have a nose who want money, control the environment, and they like luxury. That's the reason when JANINE was talking about like, oh, how much money I can make on a book deal, how people is going to pursue me, because they want to be in control. They want to be that person that everybody look and admire. So now with the final slides, about if my computer, here we go. Now, can we see again? So we talk about ear. I did the same. I measured both ears. I duplicate the box, and we can see they both have small ears. They're visual. They were attracted by visual. And you can see that all the pictures has to do with a forest and outdoor and things that has to do with earth. How funny they both have the same chin related to that. So they have high ears, meaning that the ears are processing information really fast, both. She was processing, and she knows how to process information and land like a cat on the ground faster than he did. She is more intelligent than he is, way more intelligent. She knew what she was doing. Chapeau, lady, you knew what we were doing. Now, something that it get my attention too, when you see ears on the top stick out, is people who think outside the box. So ears has to do with how we take information. And I always said, I'm fascinated with ears for so many things that we can read about it. This is our antenna. Both antennas were visual, process information really fast, and they both think outside the box. Maybe for them wasn't an affair, it was just a game, because they were playing it together. Now, second one, I grab this box, I take it on his nose, again, duplicate it and put it on top of her nose. Do you see any difference, girls? Do you
It's
see
the
any
same
difference?
size. You're saying it's the same size?
Yes, correct. So long nose, long from the start to the bottom. It's need to be in control of their pace, style of work. They have a necessity for quality and status, whatever it is. Even if you're part of a church, you want to be in control. If you are part of the HOA, you want to be the president. You're going to be in control of your environment. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes the control of the environment is between two, or maybe it's in your own house. You need to control the electricity, the weather, absolutely who happen around you. And Nichol always showed to be in control. She never gave up. She knew even though when to go to the police to give them control so she can keep the control too. So now not only they have a long nose, they have a large nose, need to be in a position of authority. They want to make a major impact. That may be the reason she went to the police. She want to be the hero, the superhero story, the hero journey. I was talking with somebody who does storytelling for sales, and they're like, everyone who have that a big and long nose want to be the hero story journey. They want to show how they are important. But the thing that struck me the most, and it's weird that you see this in a couple because they tend to be feisty. Can you see on the top of the nose, they have like a square It was difficult to find a clear picture. It was the only one that have the bump on the bridge. The bridge is between your eyebrows and the middle of the nose is a bump. And you're going to find it in most of the football players and people in the military and people who go to the front on their boxers. As feisty when back into a corner. Hate when someone baffle their position, meaning it's my way or the highway. When he get rid of his family, because that will really happen, she was getting in a position, now I need to get with you. You put me in a corner. The police put it on the corner. The society put it on the corner. She didn't like it. But the funny part, he didn't like it either. So how many points of encounter we have to show these two were on this together? They knew what we're doing. And I think therefore both was a game. And the game ended up with 4 people dead. Back to you guys.
Oh, Susan, that was a lot. In fact, you brought up something that Lena sort of talked about, and I'll just ask one question for the two of you. You said she's calculating, and Lena, you said she sort of knew what the heck she was doing and soliciting or eliciting kind of an affair.
Yes.
Would you say she was calculating enough to sort of put things in his head, maybe not do the act, but to help instigate the act that he did, the murder? I just, you don't know the answer.
Question. It's a good question, but then again, it's all in his head. So it's really how he interpreted it, and we don't know,
We don't know that.
I think that's the risk when you put things and you don't know how far the other person can take it. Maybe you just give a compliment to someone. Every day you go to the supermarket and one day that person asks you out and like, I wasn't sexual with you. Like, well, you're nice to me because nobody else. So I think it has to do with their own dictionary. I was talking, another friend says, if another woman compliment me on the supermarket, I doesn't feel the same like a man do it. When a man do it, I think they're going to take on me. But if an older lady, well-dressed, compliment the way I dress, I feel better about myself. And it caught me thinking when I was preparing this case, and like how much she was playing the game without considering how damaged he is. Why? Because one of the things that he have is the ear when he is disconnecting from reality. So he was building his own reality on the head. So she was instigating, he was executing, but I don't think she measured how much he was feeding him up and how he react based on her own needs. And I see you, Lena, like jumping.
Yeah, because that's it. She's thinking about herself. Clearly, she's not thinking about him. It's how can I get him, and how can I bait him into what I want? And it's almost like, it's like, what do they say? The catch, is the exciting part. And then once you get it, you're like, nah, right? And this is why we don't see her. She's like dismissive in that interview that Janine brought up. She doesn't care, that what he's done, and laughs about, oh yeah, I thought he was cute at the time because his kid needs a dad. And she's like, she's not even facing reality. For her, it was the game, that ego. Let me see if I can get him. He's a married man. That's how it comes across to me, because she was purposeful in baiting him into a conversation and an affair.
And we can see for the reading on the face that happened. Thank you, guys.
I'm going to add one more thing to that before I get to my part.
Yeah.
She may be a little more than just an innocent person, because a week before the murders, she was looking up wedding gowns.
Yeah.
So maybe she knew, Susan, you said she's smart. She may not have consciously, or maybe she did, sort of not knowing what was going to happen, but lure him in to something that she maybe didn't know how far, like you say, the game would go, but she knew what she wanted.
Yes,
Michelle, before we go into the part, we have a huge surprise for our patron members tonight. Yeah,
Okay.
we're going to get a teaser, and we're going to start doing trivias based on the different specialties that we have. In this case, it's my turn. The trivia today on the Patreon, so don't forget to tune in at 9 p.m. Central Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to tease you. Who do you think is the most extrovert person on the profiler task force? Who do you think is the most introvert, who is an ambivert, and how you can read that in others and yourself, and what is the meaning? You will be surprised, because when I threw it to the group, like, cannot be like, yes, ladies, that's
I
the
knew
person.
answer.
Yeah, you can don't say anything. It's a
I'm
trivia
not
for
going to
tonight.
say it.
You're
I'm
not
not
allowed
saying
to.
it. Not
That
saying it. But
now,
I think I
guys,
knew.
that's how the mouse how the cat play with the mouse. We're playing with you guys, and you have the chance to play with us too. So we're waiting to see you tonight. So discover who's the most extrovert person on the profiler task force. Michelle, your time to share.
Why don't we look at some handwriting? Let's look at some of the first slide, and I'll explain it. Okay, let me explain. This is actually a chapter from my book, and it is that a phallic symbol in your handwriting, or are you just happy to see me? Now, these are real handwriting samples of real people, and some of them you know, like the Marquis de Sade. One happens to be Michael Jackson. There's all different people who have what I call rather kinky sexual habits. When you start to see a phallic symbol or something that looks like a male's part in handwriting, you are almost always dealing with somebody that sex is on their mind, and not just your most conventional sex, sort of a little what we would call off the mainstream. So I was not able to get Nichol Kessinger's handwriting, but I got the next best thing. Let's look at the next slide. Okay, now this is taken, if you want to go back and look at our Chris Watts video, which we did a couple weeks ago, I took words out of place. And I was explaining one thing, but here's something else. I want you to look at that second letter. Do you see that it's a little, it's a little phallic symbol. It's a male's part. And it's starting to grow, and it started to grow in Chris Watts' handwriting. What does that mean? Sex is on his mind, and not your sweet, nice, gentle sex necessarily. Now, going back to Nichol Kessinger, besides looking for wedding dresses, the other thing she looked up just a week or so before the murders was, and excuse me if my language, but was what's the easiest way to have anal sex? So what attracts somebody to somebody else? Maybe it's their face, maybe it's their words, maybe it's their sexual similarities. So obviously there was a sexual passion and a connectedness between these two people that maybe drove Chris Watts into a spiral that he couldn't get out of. Mm-hmm. So that's the handwriting. Anyhow, Lena, Susan, you have any questions about anything at all? Any phallic symbol, anything you want to know?
I'm not gonna get lured
you
there.
Touched that one.
And the happy hour, I get nailed with that. So I'm not gonna talk about sexuality. And the last show, I ended up in a bad position. So I'm gonna go to the other part that is how crazy how they're similar were in so many things, like they're so Bonnie similar. And Clyde.
Right. That's what I wondered. Are these two like a Bonnie and Clyde? Lena, any last questions?
Just hearing all the analysis, these two are two peas in a pod for certain. Their personalities mirrored each other. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Two peas in a pod that mirrored each other. And maybe, and I've wondered this about other people, do you meet the right or what I call the wrong person? And that puts somebody who may not have the best intentions in their life, but may put them down a path that they could have resisted. But if you put the wrong or right or wrong people together, can they do things that they would never, ever think of at another time.
I have another question. How he ended up with the sweetheart of wife he had, being the person that he still is. That will be a question, and I don't think that
I
we
have
can.
an may
Oh,
I
yeah.
answer?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to answer how he had the sweetheart of a wife. But I'll answer another question. I did look for all kinds of handwriting samples, and I found tons of them. And what were they from? Women writing to Chris Watts love letters in prison. Now, the last guy I'd want was someone who killed my wife, killed my kids, whatever. But letter after letter were from women infatuated by Chris Watts.
That's disturbing.
That's disturbing. I mean, not one, not two, multiple women writing love letters, how they'll wait for him. So it's a very strange world sometimes. And for maybe what it means is for each strange person, there's some other strange one after. But with that, I think, what can you say?
Hey,
Maybe one day I'll analyze those letters of the women who choose somebody who's in prison who murdered his wife and kids. Well, everybody, it was wonderful having you here. Now, I wonder again about this Nichol Kessinger. Was she like a Bonnie and Clyde? Would Chris Watts have killed without her influence? Or was she just a victim taken in by Chris Watts? Well, before I hand it over to Lena to end the show, I'm going to pick our winner for the month of December, one of our patrons. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm excited.
It is Margaret. Okay, Margaret, get in touch with Lena and you'll see what you've won. Yay, Margaret. Okay,
Congrats,
Lena,
Margaret.
take it. Yay.
Thank you.
And now for Lena, who's in charge of our Patreon. She's so wonderful. Lena, could you tell everybody a little bit about Patreon and what's happening?
Thank you, Michelle. Yes. So Patreon is a place where you can go and subscribe. It is a subscription-based service and join our family as an ambassador. We have multiple tiers, and in each tier you get something special. So all tiers get our 4 monthly videos to you, and we train you in specific techniques that we train government agencies and law enforcement and private sector in. Some tiers allow you to win free one-on-one coaching sessions with us, and some tiers allow you that VIP access to our happy hour where you can participate with us and ask us questions. And I just want to thank everybody, all of our subscribers, of course, our Patreon members, and thank you, Jenny, because she's our recent Wise Owl subscriber. And I also want to thank those of you who just happened by our channel and stuck around and watched this episode. So from all of us to all of you, be safe and have a wonderful night.
Bye. We love you.
Yay.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.